different kinds of reports coming out this week. Some Russian military bloggers yesterday reporting that there have been advances from Ukrainian troops in Bakhmut, but it's not been clear, has it?
Well, the first casualty of any war is always the truth. And what you'll see is a lot of conflicting information over the coming days and possibly even weeks, because as both sides really do contend and contest over gaining territory in Ukraine, both of them will be attempting to win the information war. And the information war is not always about what you do say, it's about what you don't say and how you say as well.
So what's your analysis, from you applying that then to what we've heard, what's your take on where we are?
So, well, it seems as though that it is not a very good outcome for Russia. I mean, generally speaking, regardless of what the outcome, whether Ukraine can claim a victory, whatever your victory looks like for Ukraine or not, one thing we know for certain is that Russia will greatly decline in its international influence as a result of its decimated economy and military capacity. Where we are at the moment, what we've learned in the last few hours is that Russian and Wagner forces are retreating to the north of Bakhmut and flee into the east. So it seems as though Ukraine does have the upper hand.
OK, and this will be significant, I mean, if this is the case, because it's a land gain, isn't it, which is, we haven't heard about that for several months.
Well, it's very interesting because it was only a few days ago where Prigozhin, the head of Wagner, tweeted that there were some gains that his mercenaries or private military contractors were making, and they were around, in his own numbers, 130 metres. A couple of days later, 100 in 24 hours. Now,
this is a bit like the Second World War, wasn't it, when they were talking about advances like that and costing hundreds of lives?
Well, actually, it's a very good point to raise a comparison, because when we look at the advances of the US forces in Operation Desert Storm in 1991, they were 1 mile, 1,600 metres in 24 hours. Now, of course, that's desert warfare. This is contested, congested land warfare. However, there was 80,000 citizens in Bakhmut. Now there's only a couple of thousand at the most, and the city is far more fluid for troops to move through. So 130 metres is not great at all.
No. I mean, what difference is it going to make? And I don't know when they're sort of getting online, as it were, but these storm shadows, which you've now had confirmed, these missiles that we're supplying, got a range of about 155 miles, I think. In terms, if there is this spring advance, if Ukraine is managing to push forward a little, what difference could these longer-range missiles have?
Well, it's probably worth understanding the geopolitical context around these missiles a bit before we go into that. Britain's role in Europe has always been a balancing force, which has shaped the global power balance we see today, i.e. which nations have the most influence. But if you look at the 4 wars which have shaped that to date, the Holy Roman Empire Wars, Napoleonic Wars, the Great War and the Second World War, Britain has played a leading role in oppressing the aggressors in 3 of those 4 wars. And that's been as a result of a number of direct military interactions and indirect military interactions as well. So Britain's applying these Storm Shadow missiles doesn't really come as a surprise to the international political community. And if we didn't actually do that, there would be some questions raised around Britain's role as a great power. In terms of them having an effect, we won't know until that effect is given, is the honest truth. But they are very powerful missiles. They travel around a Mach. So that's about 1,000 miles an hour, just under Mach, that's about Mach 8, and they travel about 100 to 180 feet, and they've got a special cloaking device, which we can't discuss, of course, but they are very, very powerful missiles. They explode twice, once when they hit the initial target, and then again, so they're aimed for...
So it's like armour-piercing sort of thing? Or,
a bit like that as well, but they go for high-value targets. They're expensive missiles, they're a couple of £1 million a pop, and so using those things, they will be used for things such as ammunition depots and for supply depots as well. So high-value targets will be a use.
So we're talking about a spring advance and these Storm Shadow missiles. What's the Russian response to all this going to be?
Well, we don't know. Again, to be honest with you, there's so much divide and division within the military and the political ranks in Russia. I don't think they know either. So it wouldn't be appropriate for us to be able to predict. But as long as what we can do is decide what we want to do, as a result is the continuation of support for Ukraine, that's probably the most pragmatic approach to take.
OK. Shane. Oh, no, have you got another one?
I'm just intrigued about Russian morale at this stage, because they were told that this was a special operation that would last just a few days, potentially weeks, and we're now, way into over a year, aren't we? Almost 18 months into this war, and we're talking about advances in Bakhmut. I mean, it's not what they went in for, is it?
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, we can see that if we look at the Victory Day parades, which took place on Tuesday, there was 125 items of military equipment paraded through Moscow's Red Square. That's usually quadruple that.
Yeah.
So the morale is going to be very low at the meantime as well. You'll see, we've heard a lot of the division and divide where Prigozhin has directly accused the Kremlin of not supplying the ammunition they need. So at the moment, there's not going to be a lot of happy faces in the Kremlin or amongst the troops in Russia.